Hi, it's Matt from Tubby Tarot again. Welcome to another book chat. Yes, I know I've been a bit remiss. I haven't done a book chat for a while. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to do cut. Seriously. Okay, let's try this again. Hi, I'm Matt from Tubby Tarot. Welcome back to another book chat. So everyone knows I'm obsessed with Agatha Christie. Oh, by the way, if you don't like book chat, move on. Everyone knows I'm obsessed with Agatha Christie, and today I want to share with you my Agatha Christie non-fiction collection. So I'm just going to go straight into it. It's in no specific order, so we're going to bounce around a bit. But these are books that I can highly recommend. There are a shitload of books out there about Agatha Christie, and I think some of the books I've got here are just like, it's not only about her, but like really interesting stuff. So I'm going to start with two funny little books that I got online. One is Little Grey Cells. It's the quotable Poirot. It's gorgeous. It's this little tiny book, okay? And it's hardcover. It's really gorgeous. It is literally little quotes from Hercule Poirot. So little quotes from the book. So the English people, they have a mania for the fresh air, the big air. It is all very well outside where it belongs. Why admit it to the house? It's from the merger of Roger Ackroyd. So this is just a really cute little book with quotes from Hercule Poirot. Something you can just you dip into it and dip out of it. What I like about it is the little moustache is actually like a velveteen kind of thing, and it's just stuck on there. Very cute. I've got the same one for Miss Marple. And they've also done this like little, if you feel the glasses, it feels like glass. It's really cute. So it's also the quotable Miss Marple. To commit a murder, I think you need bravery, or perhaps more often just conceit. That's from They Do It With Mirrors. Lovely little books. Dip in, dip out. Cutesy. Okay. Now let's start with the actual Christies. So the first one I'm going to show you is a book of letters, and not letters, but essays by other authors about Agatha Christie and about her work. And it is called First Lady of Crime, Agatha Christie, First Lady of Crime, and it's of course edited by H.R.F. Keating, who's a very well-known editor for Christie collections and that sort of thing. And it's just a really cool little book. It's an easy read. You could do this in like 2 days, and it's fascinating what other crime authors think of Agatha Christie and the way she writes and how she writes. So that's definitely a must read, okay, or a must get in your non-fiction Agathas. Guys, I just want to do something quickly because these are all going to fall over. Give me a sec. There we go. Okay, the next book I want to discuss want to show you is Come Tell Me How You Live. Okay, this is Agatha Christie when she went on the archaeological digs in the Middle East. Now, her second husband, Max Mallowan, was an archaeologist, and they actually met and were married like within 4 months or something ridiculous. They were married like really early. And she went on a lot of these digs with him, these archaeological digs, and she wrote some great books, kind of sort of based on her knowledge of the Middle East, things like Death on the Nile and Murder in Mesopotamia. Those books were very influenced by her time spent here. And this is a fascinating book because it's just Agatha Christie stepping away from being an author and just being a kind of real person. So you get to see how she suffered with the heat and how the people started learning about how to respect her and how she learned the customs. Very interesting book. Definitely worth getting, and it's a really easy read. It just reads like she's telling you a story. So that's called Come Tell Me How You Live. Okay. The next one is also a book written by Agatha Christie. It's called The Grand Tour. Now, in 1922, Britain sent a delegation all over the world all over the British Empire to advertise like the British Empire. Okay, so she went to South Africa, that's where I live. She went to Australia, New Zealand, Hawaii, and Canada. Okay, now this book is all the letters that she wrote to her mom and her daughter. I'm trying to, like, they've taken all her letters, which described this to her so brilliantly. So they've taken the letters and they've kind of written the letters for her. And it's quite a big book. And it is fascinating. It's a book, I literally read this in about 3-4 days because it is, you can't put this thing down. It's such a window into a completely different world, a world that doesn't exist. It's absolutely phenomenal. Yeah, definitely worth the money. It was quite expensive here. I don't know where you live, if it's expensive, but I paid quite a bit of money for this and I love it. I will definitely reread this at some stage. It's fascinating. Okay, now there's a whole series of books. Okay, there's a whole series of books. They have this sort of cover. All right, can you see there? You see, it's got like this kind of Art Nouveau, Deco, blah, blah kind of cover. Now, the first one I'm going to show you is A is for Arsenic. It's The Poisons of Agatha Christie. It's by Catherine Marker. Okay, there you can see it. Gorgeous book. Love it. Absolutely love it. It's got that kind of non-glossy, goldy, coppery stuff. Now, this is a very interesting book because it tells you all about the poisons that Agatha Christie uses in her books. So you will get to know arsenic, where it comes from, how can you use it? Can Agatha Christie actually use it the way she does? And how does she use it in her books? Nicotine, for instance, can you die from the stuff in the cigarette, or what is nicotine? How does Agatha Christie know about these poisons? Fascinating book, really, really worth getting. It's a book that is really, this is just for absolute fans of Christie's work. It's not something that if you just kind of like Christie you would get, but I'm obsessed. So for me, this was an absolute treat, and it's very, very readable. It's not hugely technical. It explains the different ways these poisons can be used and their chemical makeup in a very easy to understand way. Now, the next book by Carla Valentine. Carla Valentine's written quite a few books about Christie, and it's called Murder Isn't Easy. It's the forensics of Agatha Christie. Okay, it's quite a big book. Big book. Another incredibly easy book to read, and it's all about how Agatha Christie uses forensics in her books. For instance, she knew about fingerprints. Okay, you must remember when she was writing in the 20s and 30s, that was a new thing. Then she learned about ballistics and how people could find out stuff about the murderer, about what weapon was used by the bullets. And all of this was up and coming stuff. I mean, some of the stuff she wrote about was experimental. That ballistics thing was actually an experimental thing at that stage. So this proves that Agatha Christie was very much up to date with her kind of forensics information. And yeah, there are a couple of mistakes, which this woman points out, but it's mistakes that are made because we've progressed so far since these days, the 20s, that we've discovered more. So this is fascinating. Again, very easy to read, very interesting to read, not only because of it's linked to the Christie books, and each part of this is linked to a book, but it's also just a fascinating read on forensics. So another really one, again, very expensive, but definitely worthwhile. Again, only if you are a huge Christie fan. It's not something that you will buy if you just want to read a book for the story. Okay, now, this one, The Life and Crimes of Agatha Christie, it's by Charles Osborne. If you know, anybody knows who Charles Osborne is, well done. He is probably like the definitive Agatha Christie writer out there. He writes about her. And this is a great book. Look at that cover. I just love that cover. It looks like a sort of one of those books that tells you all about movies, you know. And these are all covers, like little cover pictures from different versions of her books. Now, this book is really cool because it goes through all the books that she wrote, when she wrote them, why she wrote them, and how she came to come up with characters and that sort of thing, all to do with her life. So in the 20s, she was this happy young woman. Then she got divorced and she disappeared for the week. I'm sure you heard about that. And then she married Max Mallowan. And it breaks it down book by book, and what was not only her inspirations, but also what was happening in her life at that stage when that book was written. So this is a fascinating, again, I think I read this in like a week. I couldn't put it down. It was so cool. And it's got like pictures and stuff in it. I love books with pictures, especially when it comes to Agatha Christie. Okay, so this is a really nice book by Charles Osborne, The Life and Crimes of Agatha Christie. Okay. Now, the next two books I want to show you are so cute. What this author, Anne Hart, has done is she's taken Miss Marple and Hercule Poirot. Okay, they are vastly different in size. So she's taken these two characters and she's written biographies on them. So she's pretended that they are real people, and she has gone right back and she has written, by reading every single Agatha Christie book about these characters, and looking in Agatha Christie's journals and that sort of thing, she has pieced together who these characters are, who these people are, where they were born, how they came to be, their family, all of that. She's actually written like biographies about Miss Marple, the life and times of Miss Jane Marple. And it's just a fascinating, this is fascinating. This you can read in a day, this little Miss Marple one, because you don't want to put it down. Sometimes I actually think some of these books are more exciting than some of Agatha Christie's actual novels. But this is really cute. It tells you everything about Miss Jane Marple and where she comes from, how she comes from, how she became the sleuth that she is. Tells you a bit about her youth, and it creates a living person. All right, and exactly the same thing for Hercule Poirot, the life and times of Hercule Poirot. She did exactly the same thing with this book. Only thing is there's so much more to Poirot, as you can see. Also because there's a lot more information about him. Strangely enough, when you read the Miss Marple books, there's not a hell of a lot of information about her. Whereas Poirot, we know that he used to work for the Belgian police, so he's an ex-policeman and blah, blah, blah. So there's a lot of meat on this bone, okay? Stunning books. These, even if you're not a huge fan, these two books are just really, just get them and read them, especially if you like the Miss Marple or and Poirot books. They are fascinating. They give you an amazing insight into the character. Sticking with Poirot, I have two books here, and I haven't read this one. This is my latest one that's just arrived from Amazonia. Okay. I call it Amazonia. Actually, I don't order from Amazon. I order from something called Loot, which buys their stuff from Amazon and then sells it to us at a reduced rate. I have no idea how it works, but anyway. So this is by David Suchet, and it is called David Suchet, Poirot and Me. This is, if you don't know who David Suchet is, please go and look him up. He's the definitive Poirot. Okay, he played the part on television, I think it was ITV, for 25 years. And as soon as you say Poirot, people who've seen the TV program or the TV series immediately think of him because he's phenomenal. That's what he looks like as Poirot, and that's what he looks like in real life, okay, without the Poirot makeup and padding and stuff. Very interesting. I haven't actually read this yet, but it's about his time playing Poirot and all the sort of behind-the-scenes secrets about being Poirot on set. So I'm really looking forward to that. If you like Poirot and if you like David Suchet, it's a no-brainer. Get this. The other one I've got here is by Mark Eldridge. It's just Agatha Christie's Poirot. It's this book. This was written this year, 2022. Okay, and it is a literally book by book, play by play, film by film, radio drama by radio drama breakdown of Poirot. Every single thing. It discusses again where he comes from, who he is, the books that he appeared in, what Agatha Christie was thinking when she wrote him into stories, because some of the stories that you see on TV weren't actually Poirot, they've just added Poirot into it. So this is a very fascinating book, and this one reads super, super cool. I think I finished this in a week as well. Once you start these books, you can't put the bloody things down. They're so cool. Okay, so this one. If I had to say which of these two, and please, oh God, I'm so sorry, David, but if I had to choose between these two, I'd choose this one. Okay, and it was published in 2022, I think February. So it's really up to date. It's even got the Kenneth Branagh. It mentions all the Kenneth Branagh movies in the back. That's how up to date it is. Okay, then I have got a biography. It's by Laura Thompson, and this is fascinating because it's a biography, okay? And Laura Thompson, there are a lot of biographies about Agatha Christie out there. But if I had to choose, or if I had to suggest one for you to buy, it would be this one, okay? Very up to date, very, very truthful, which can be quite hurtful and quite eye-opening at the same time. There are a lot of very interesting facts about Christie in this book that either people don't know or that were definitely left out of her autobiography, which brings me to her autobiography. This was the very first non-fiction book I ever read of Agatha Christie's, and that's her autobiography. I would call this more a memoir than an autobiography. It doesn't touch on any of the scandalous things in her life. In fact, it's once you've read it, it's almost very devoid of any kind of like personality, this book, and it's like her autobiography. What makes it really cool is that it's like a glimpse into the Victorian era and how people grew up in those days. It's a glimpse into a world that hasn't existed for many years. You know, this book is set in such a time period that we will never really be able to understand how these people grew up or what happened. But again, it's a cute book, it's a nice book, it's kind of a window into that era, but also a window into Agatha Christie's mind. And even though it is heavily censored by Christie herself, I mean, she kept a lot of stuff hidden from that you find out in the Laura Thompson book. It's definitely a cute and lovely book to read. And as I say, it's special to me because it's the first non-fiction book of hers I read. Okay, my last Agatha book that I want to show you is this thing. It's a massive book. It's by John Curran, and it is The Complete Secret Notebooks. Now, this is a very interesting book. It's very difficult to read. It is 2 books in one. Okay, there were the Secret Notebooks 1 and Secret Notebooks 2. Now, quick background. Agatha Christie, when she was writing her stories, she used to keep these notebooks, okay, loads of them, with story ideas, scratching out. Like you would keep a notebook, like you would keep a diary, scratch out working stuff. These were working notebooks. And Agatha Christie was notorious for having a very, very, very ugly handwriting that's really hard to decipher. So what John Curran did was he went through, and it took him so long to put these 2 books together. But I got the one that's got both of them in here. And I want to show you what I mean. Like, this is kind of like, you can see, these are copies directly from the things, from her notebooks. I don't know if you can see that. Like, she writes about this character, and then she scratches stuff out. This is about the book, and then there were none. So it's how she plotted and put together all her books, all her mysteries. It is a difficult read. It's not a read not a book you're going to sit there and go, oh my God, I'm going to read this from cover to cover. It can be kind of plodding. Again, this is only recommended for absolutely obsessed people who want to know the mechanization, the actual way that these stories were plotted, the bare bones that were eventually added onto to create the stories. Cool book, not an absolute necessity, but if you're a fan, really interesting read, although it's a bit of a slog. Now, the last book I want to tell you about is not actually an Agatha Christie book, but I'm busy reading this at the moment. It's called Mallowin's Memoirs. It's by Max Mallowan, and its subtitle is Agatha and the Archaeologist. Now, Max Mallowan was her second husband. He was an archaeologist, and that's why she went on all those archaeological digs. And this is it's his memoirs, okay? And it's fascinating because it starts when he was a boy, obviously, and as he grows up, and kind of a third of the way through, he marries Agatha Christie. And so the rest of the book is basically his life with her, specifically on the digs in Egypt, in actually Iran and Iraq, which I think that's the places now, Babylon and those sort of places. This is fascinating, but it's not directly an Agatha Christie book. However, if you like Christie and you like her sort of Egyptian murder in Mesopotamia and Appointment with Death and Death on the Nile, if you like those, this is a lovely book. It's a lovely companion book that you can actually see where she got her ideas for those novels from. And that, as they say in French, is that. I have no other non-fiction books of hers. I think that's pretty much enough, although if something new comes along, I know I'm going to buy it. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed this. If you haven't, shame for you. You'll have to come back next week and see what I got on the cards. Have a lovely week further, and I will see you on the flip side. Hi, thanks for watching my video. Don't forget to go and like and subscribe, and check out some more of my videos in my playlists.